Welcome to another episode of AI After Hours. Each month, we cut through the AI hype by answering your top questions and calling bullshit on the headlines that we don't think make any sense. Join us for a monthly roundup of AI news and real insights into what's true and what's not in the world of artificial intelligence. Have a question or a topic? Email us at support@aicareerboost.com. So let's dive into the world of AI together.
I'm your co-host, Yuying Chen-Wynn. I'm a product and technology executive with extensive experience in AI and education. So I'm currently leading applied AI at Peak 6, focusing on everything generative AI and actually understanding what it takes to meaningfully leverage into AI into your business. And I love talking about AI, especially with my co-host.
I love talking about AI with you too. I'm your other co-host, Polly Allen. I'm the founder of AI Career Boost, where I spend my time helping product managers navigate the world of AI, lead successful projects, and transition into AI leadership roles. I've spent my career in both the product and software technology worlds, development worlds, much like Yu Ying, and I'm an ex-Alexa AI principal product manager, where I successfully led the first generative AI answers on Alexa in 2020. I'm also a top 100 Women of the Future winner, and yeah, I'm obsessed with AI. I can't help it. So Yu Ying, let's jump into it. Important questions first. What are you drinking tonight in our after-hours celebration of the month that was?
So I have my cute little setup here. I gotta do it proper. You see?
Yeah.
My little
Ooh.
sake setup.
Okay.
Yeah, it's sake and it's called Born Gold. I have no idea. And the rest of it is in Japanese, but it was very cool
Oh,
looking. But I have a little
oh,
set.
nice.
What are you drinking?
Excellent. I have a golden beverage as well. I
Excellent.
figured it feels like it's finally summer. I'm cracking into the apple cider. Just feels very seasonal right
Ah,
now. Crisp light apple cider, one of my faves in the summer. So, and we'll
nice.
see if it makes me, more sassy as the night goes on.
An apple a day keeps the doctor away. In your case, we go straight to liquid form. Excellent. Very efficient as a
I'll take it.
technologist should. All right, excellent. So we're going to start off with the monthly roundup of AI news for the month of June. Okay, so this is where we usually go through the headlines. And we don't go through all of them from the month, but we do kind of pick out what we think actually makes a difference. Those of you that are trying to understand business strategy or trying to find direction in terms of investment and not so much more for the developer aspects. So we pick and choose. Yeah, you are at my mercy in terms of my filtering, but that is what you're in here for. There is quite a bit of news this month, so I'm gonna go through it fairly quickly, but try to highlight at least what I think is interesting. So first, off the top, Claude 3.5. Just that alone, you're like, why do I care? It's a point 0.5. We are Claude 3. Um, this is a new LLM model updates. Now, there's been lots of LLM model updates in
Hard to keep
multimodal.
up.
It's hard to keep up, but why do I care, or do I care? So 3.5, this is Sonnet only now. So Opus, the
So
largest
not even their
multimodal,
best model.
not even their best
That's
model.
right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
do I care or do I not care? It's just the point 0.5. The things to care, I will say number one, I always care about speed. At this point, everybody's using it. The faster, the more use you'll get. And this is 2x the speed. That's significant. If you've ever listened to, I forget who it was that talks about Google search, where every millisecond of performance improvement they get increased usage. We're at this point with AI. This is a 2x speed improvement over the GPT 4.0, which was their latest model in terms of speed. So speed matters to you, and for most of us, it does. Our patients are getting shorter and shorter and shorter. The
Exactly. Especially conversational use cases, right? Totally.
Very much multimodal, which we already knew before, but it's improved. That means image recognition and those things are happening. But I brought this in for the third piece, something called artifacts, which does not help you at all
Mhm.
in terms of huh, what am I in archaeology now? Why are we dealing with artifacts?
The name is
Yeah, I was
misleading, I think.
okay. So if you ever played with GPT code interpreter mode, which just means it runs Python and executes things on the side. That's essentially what you get now with Claude 3.5 artifacts. But it's not just that. So the example, if you watch the video, is you can get it to code a simple video web app, and it'll show the code, it'll execute it, and then you'll see it rendered. So you can actually be creating something through code and see it perform off the side. This, I think, is what's noteworthy. What did you think, Polly?
Yeah, I was super excited to see it because I think I've been saying for a long time, people really focus on like the LLM competition, who's got the best model on all these benchmarks. Whereas for a long time, OpenAI has been running away with the feature roadmap, like for their, especially for their consumer facing product, right? ChatGPT was the first to release a Teams edition where you could share prompts with other people. It's the first one to release it does a lot of features under the hood where you're like, oh, it uses coding flexibly, or handing it over to a Python interpreter when it's the right thing to do, or doing analytics. It does web scraping, kind of. You don't have to decide as a user whether it's doing that or not. It does all that decision for you under the hood. A lot of other models or other tools were playing catch up as far as like how usable that interface is. And what I thought was so smart about artifacts, it's actually not that different from what you can do in 4.0 with Code Interpreter, right? You could actually create all of the same things, but that it's a UX change that makes it so much more apparent what it's doing. Honestly, I've had people like, I'm just like, hey, sit down and do this. And because they actually see the code, kind of pouring out in front of them, and then it's like, now I'm running it, they get it, right? And whereas the interface they're using in ChatGPT, it kind of like might show you for a second and then it collapses and it's hidden. It doesn't have the same wow factor. So it is just kind of a wow thing for consumers, but I think it's important, especially because that gulf between what end consumers really understand it can do and what developers are getting that it can do is like, it's been growing for a long time. I see this shrinking it. So I think it's a really cool feature. I'm going to definitely do some demos in it for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree with you that the Claude 3.5, the other ones, not so much unless you're in development, but the artifacts feature really kind of hits it home. All right. Next piece, of course, we had the Apple Developer Conference. This was following the Microsoft one and the Google one. There was huge amounts of AI related announcements. Now, with
Totally.
Apple, they announced what's called Apple Intelligence. I'm like, that's kind of a cute name. It's a different approach, right? There was not like a list of 100. So I do these analysis of all the announcements, try to break it down. With Apple, it wasn't humongous. It wasn't this massive long list of every AI, every prototype idea we've ever had in research video. A couple of things that I noted, I think were interesting, and I want to hear your take on it. So number one, the Siri upgrade. So not just having conversational and LLM backing it up, but having on-screen awareness, similar to Microsoft Recall. But I think they do a better job on the concern around privacy, because now you're observing everything I'm doing on my device. So then that gives you, Apple is giving you choice to use an on-device LLM, which means nothing ever goes anywhere, versus cloud, which is very interesting. The second one, of course, for me was the OpenAI partnership at the OS level integration. So the cloud option that they give you, you can choose it to give it to OpenAI. These were two most prominent ones for me. It was not huge, splashy demo video, artificial intelligence robots doing a song and dance. But what was your take on the Apple WDC?
Yeah, I was kind of surprised at the reaction. I know a lot of people noted, oh, they're purposely trying not to say artificial intelligence, and I think they were definitely trying to be like, we're the adults in the room. We're not going to be super flashy about this stuff. One of the things I was kind of confused and disappointed by was the number of people who were like, oh, this is so boring, and like this is a big letdown. I thought the plays were brilliant. So specifically, this idea of them focusing on what's happening on the device, keeping your data on device so you can keep it secure, keep it private. I mean, think of the reception of like Microsoft, we're going to capture your every single move on the computer and use it as something you can search, right? We're so used to our personal computers, personal, right? No longer being personal, right? So this was definitely like zigging when other companies are zagging. And I also liked that they were just really focused like, hey, is Apple an AI company? Like, not really, right? They're really essentially a devices company, right? So they're like, hey, what is the thing only we can do? What is the thing that, like, and they are in the place to secure data, make their devices on device as capable as possible, and solve that the security and privacy issues with these cloud-based, browser-based systems. I just thought it was very, very smart, and I think it was a really great play that's going to last long term, right? And have much more long term impact that all of these like flashy demos, everything about is about video, that really make the consumers go wow. I think we'll see plenty of wow from them. It's Apple. Um, but I liked the tone. I liked the move. I hope the industry moves this way, where they're actually focusing on how can we deliver value, and focusing on that instead of these like 150 announcements, 57 directions, AI for everybody, everything all the time, right? It's like, okay, we're over the mass freak out orgasming over AI. Like, please, can we now have ours?
That phrase is going to go in quotes somewhere. Freak out orgasming over AI, as Polly said. We're over it. Okay. But I am on the same page with you that I really appreciated Apple not just becoming a Me Too in the AI
Exactly.
arms race, but actually focusing on what they can do and do well. Apple is known for their user experience. Please, please, please keep that, because we are definitely in need of well thought out user experience with AI applications. The partnership with OpenAI, which actually leads me to my next news item around OpenAI. So number one, this was fairly significant. I really wasn't sure whether Apple was going to do this one with OpenAI, given the close relationship with Microsoft. But relative to another announcement, it's not so much an announcement, but OpenAI updated that their annualized revenue has increased to 3.6 billion, which is a double within the last 6 months. And you
Yeah.
saw that PwC has become the first reseller of OpenAI at the enterprise level and the largest enterprise user at the same time as there's rumor that maybe Sam Altman is going to make OpenAI a for-profit company. Now, I just want to remind everybody, OpenAI was founded as a not-for-profit, not
Yeah.
supposed to be a profit company. All of these moves, the revenues, the partnership, looking to make more money, I think they're absolutely going into the whole revenue model and changing the original kind of idea of this good for the good of all mankind kind of open AI. But that
No,
was
and
kind of
that's
three
been
different news kind of together around OpenAI. I think it's the same idea though. But what was your take?
the way they're drifting. Yeah. So my understanding was OpenAI was founded originally as a nonprofit. It's also like definitely drifted away from open source, and if that myth persists that they're open source. Sometimes I hear people say that. It's like, no,
Yeah.
they're not open source. They are for profit, and that what they did is they broke out the nonprofit and they broke out a for-profit arm so that they could raise enough money to buy the GPUs they needed to continue on their mission. So that was how we ended up with that weird situation where you have a nonprofit board that was in charge of a for-profit company that big companies had invested in. So again, it feels like Sam Altman's, it's his mandate as of the CEO of the for-profit company. It explains some of the fractures we've seen in the OpenAI team, with one of the key research scientists left recently to start his own super intelligence company, right? That really is more founded on that original mission of OpenAI, founded on AGI as opposed to making money. But yeah, it's a good move for PwC, definitely to score that partnership. I'm sure a lot of places were looking to be that enterprise partner, as enterprises are adopting this around the world. Interesting to see that 3.4 billion revenue too. It's so many companies are still wondering if they're going to be able to
Yeah.
be profitable under the current pricing models and things like that. Are they going to change completely and leave some people hooped? That's been the
Yeah.
big competition now, is who can run the fastest to cheapen this to the point where the current pricing models make sense, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing, is the reminder that, okay, they doubled within the last 6 months in terms of annualized revenue to 3.4 billion. But that is at loss. That is not profitable. They're not making money. It didn't say how much they're losing on a monthly basis, but they are not making money. The thing for me, I think, in terms of profit for profit, not for profit. I don't have an issue with either, but don't say one and do the other.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think they did definitely kind of capitalize on that reputation of, oh, OpenAI, the name. It was just very confusing at the beginning, and they let that confusion, you
Yeah.
know, ride for a while.
Yeah. So separate it, let the nonprofit side do what it needs to do. All right. Okay. Then I have a couple of smaller ones, but I think they're very significant. I don't know if you saw this one. Universal Music Group, one of the largest in terms of ownership of artists for around music, around singers, etc., is partnering with Sound Labs for their artists to create their own AI voice clones that can be licensed out to create AI music.
Awesome.
And that's universal.
Really interesting.
I don't really have a list
Yeah.
of which
Yeah.
artists are with Universal, but
No,
it is
exactly.
large. What did you think
Yeah.
of that?
Yeah, I think I'm seeing this coming for a while, that it's like we're either going to decide we just don't pay artists anymore, in which case what motivation of like is there to make any more art, right? And that's just not a winning game for anyone. As much as we're like, oh, we can now generate music off of these artists forever, we'll get no new voices, no new human written content. Like that's really not the world that actually any of us want to live in. And it's also like it's a death for the AI companies in terms of like they need data to feed on. If they're destroying their own source of data by putting them out of business, like that's just not even in their own interest, right? So it's kind of the same with like copyright with news and stuff. These companies need to figure out a way to actually involve the creators of the content and compensate them. So I'm excited to see that happening because I think it's just such a big deal for the arts community right now. It's been just seeing blow after blow, and I'm really having to take a stand against this.
Yeah. Because the thing is, what we're seeing in at least AI music creation, you're seeing artists or different kind of, I don't know what you call them, the artists, composers, DJs, I don't know what you call them, but people are putting significant amount of creative time and talent to create work that they can't get IP protection for right now, right? Because there's
Right.
no clarity in terms of the source. This one, I
Yeah.
think, hopefully they do it right, because the first one always kind of sets the precedent. If they do it right, then you have a completely new class of either, I don't know, AI music creators who can create with either voices that are licensed, and they can get IP protection for this new creative work. That is really what I think would be the most exciting. So fingers crossed that this one is done right and not just go into scandal land, and we're going to have to shut that whole effort down for a while and no music gets created.
Exactly. No,
Okay.
totally agreed.
So the next one for me, it's similar along the veins, because I am a big proponent in terms of using AI to create new content and new forms of content. Perplexity has a lot of controversy against it right now. So I'm not saying Perplexity in general that I agree with what they're doing, but they're creating a particular feature. I think it's just called Perplexity Pages or Personal Pages. Essentially, you can use the results that you're getting and use AI generation to create new content pages that you can share. So it's essentially another way of authoring websites with AI involved. And what they're thinking is actually people are engaging with these created content just like they would anything else, because someone curated it, someone formatted in a different way. It has a particular point of view. It has a particular aesthetic. So this, I think, is very interesting, because I know when Google turned on the search, everybody's like, okay, forget it. No more websites. Nothing matters. Nobody will look at those. I feel like this might be a trend where people go, okay, AI can help with a lot of things, but I still want to look at human curated, human customized, human, I don't know, perspective, lens,
People I
aesthetic
trust,
point of view.
right?
Yeah.
How do you build trust in a system, particularly I think like a lot of the controversy around Perplexity.ai is, of course, still has that stubborn problem of hallucinations. Even sometimes the sources are not, directly attributable. But I am finding I'm using it more and more instead of Google, because especially if something's like I've got this particular question and the answer isn't written in that format, I go to Perplexity, I get a straightforward answer. I can always click through to the pages kind of thing, and not only see the answer, but determine if I trust that source, right? We forget sometimes that's part of searching is actually like, did this come from health information? Did it come from the CDC or some like GeoCities website from 1992, right? So like there's a lot of complex processes and like mental model building we do in the search process that like, I get it, a web page, it's useful. It's not a useless feature. I see it akin to like the way I share my searches right now on Perplexity or OpenAI, where I'll be like, "Ooh, hey, I did this search for us for my husband on something. Check it out." And they'd be like, "It's nicer if that would be a web page instead of a chat transcript,
Yeah.
right?" So, again, I think it's just very smart. They're looking and experimenting with how people are using this at the feature level, and that's where like the competition is heating up. It's kind of they're all going to have the same capabilities at the model level approximately. So now let's distinguish ourselves on these features. So I just think it's like going to be the golden 6 months of feature palooza as they try everything out.
Okay. So the last one is actually in the realm of research, but I wanted to do a little bit of update and we can cut it out if it's too long. It is for the financial sector, which actually has a harder time adopting generative AI because of the accuracy. So there's two pieces of research which all expand the actual use case within financial services. One is they did a earnings prediction benchmark against human analysts. And GPT-4 can do better. And what they're doing is actually they're following human analyst reasoning with chain of thought to do the prediction. Using LLM, and it actually is more accurate when the corporate earnings actually come out than humans are able to today. The second one, which I found super interesting, is going to get super technical, but anyway, those of you who are still with me in terms of embeddings, that the
Hang with us. It's
hang
worth
with
it.
us. Yep, the math capability, the advanced math capabilities for LLMs have been long criticized because, of course, it was done for languages and it doesn't understand that digits don't have any sequence or reasoning in terms of following each other. But what they have discovered in the embedding models, if you add the positioning of the digit relative to the overall number, if you just add that particular item into the embedding, that's a bunch of numbers that represents a whole sentence, but now you got numbers included. It can actually be very accurate in doing advanced
Huh.
mathematics. Yeah, and I was like,
Wow.
brilliant. I totally get it. I can't explain it. I'm excited. It's very nerdy, and most of you be like, what the hell? But I have to share
No,
with
I think
Polly because I know Polly would appreciate it.
well, and because it's the key difference, if I'm understanding correctly, I remember when we were working with news summarization that one of the problems with numbers is it would flip it. So if you have the position of the numbers, that's part of why it's bad at math, right? Is
Yeah.
actually that it's flipping the numbers positionally, not just getting it wrong randomly.
Yeah. And I love simple, elegant solution
Amazing.
in a single sentence. I'm like, I totally get why that would work. And I'm like, why did anybody do this before? What? Anyway, so yeah, that was a
Amazing.
complete nerd
Very
out.
cool.
It's not quite like the sperm whale nerd out, but it's a different, a random research thing. And with that, with our little nerd out, that wraps up the June news monthly roundup.
Oh,
Polly, over
fantastic,
to
Yuying.
you.
Great job. Thanks. And now it's time for questions. So, either scouring the web for, hey, what are the questions that AI PMs are asking right now and AI product leaders are asking? What are the questions I'm seeing people come to me? The first one I wanted to ask is really, I'm getting a lot of questions still about this AI product manager role. I think we should link to our article that we wrote together over a year and a half ago, I think. Yu Ying and I wrote an article called "What is an AI product manager? What is AI product management?" And it's interesting because I'd love to get your thoughts on this too, Yu Ying, on like how has AI product management, is it changing and how it's changing?
Woo! Let's
Big
start with the
one.
big one. With the big one. Yes, absolutely. And it's shifting with both our the corporate understanding of what can AI do for them. And the second piece, of course, is the product piece. Is there a working business model?
Uh, yeah. No one's making any money, but we're very excited.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, in terms of the skill set, I think the understanding shifts what is required. And I think more and more they're starting to understand that because of the capability improving so fast of foundational models, you do not need that technical skill to be a great AI product manager, it increasingly comes down to your can you craft a great user experience? What is it actually going to take for someone who is not an AI expert to use your product? Because that's where the market is, right? It's not for people who are already AI experts. So you're seeing that understanding more, and therefore that skill set requirement shifting. They're not looking for that PhD. They're not looking for, the 10 years of Python experience for some reason.
Or 10 years of ChatGPT experience somehow.
Yeah, exactly. You must be
That's my
generative
favorite.
AI expert and a PhD. Okay.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yes, so there is
I'd
that
100%
shift.
agree. Yeah, I'd 100% agree. And I think I'm hearing this from other leaders too. I've just been talking to product leaders at a bunch of different companies who are like, you know what? Actually, my very best like PM for publication use cases had been working at a publisher before, right? People who like are in love with the problem, right? And more than the solution, because the solutions are getting easier and easier to actually like implement. Maybe the use cases that we're tackling most effectively are tolerant to hallucinations. So they're finding ways to reduce those and have checks in the system. But I think that actual PM role, I think it's just a higher degree of specialization, right? You still need the big tech, like platform PMs. There's so many tools that are for developers where, and how to juggle all of this technology and sew it together in different ways. That space is expanding too. But all of these companies who 2 years ago did not have any AI and are really not necessarily building up capabilities, they're building up capabilities to leverage it. They're not going to become AI companies necessarily. They need PMs who can see the best use cases to leverage this, right? That's a very different skill set from that traditional platform computer science background PM that we had maybe seen in the past. And the same with like leadership, right? So I think it's interesting to see that like hopefully we're seeing a broadening of diversity in that kind of a role. I'm super excited to see that.
Yeah.
So that was that first question. What's happening with the AI PM's roles in the industry and has it changed? The second question I'd love to chat about is really what are the pitfalls that people don't see coming when they're getting to deployment? It's been interesting teaching courses over the last year and a half on AI. And it was like when I first started, people were like, "What do we build?" And then next they were like, "How do we build it safely?" And then they were like, "What do I need to know about data?" And it's like every step of the software development process came up where that sort of wave. Recently, people have been asking a lot more questions about evaluation and launch criteria and keeping their business stakeholders and their data science team on the same page about what's launchable and things like that. But so that's why I thought the next big wave is going to be all the things you wish you knew before you like deployed and got your first AI project out there in the wild. What are some things that maybe caught you off guard? I know I've got some. Do you have any you can think of?
Yes, a lot. So, error handling. How do you know it's still answering correctly, or, like it behaved yesterday? That's kind of the. There's
Yeah.
a. I'm like, we're regressing left and right because the tools aren't in place, and there's no exact answer anyway. So, was it correct? Was it not correct? Yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah,
definitely
totally.
those.
Paging correctness, monitoring.
Yeah. Error handling in particular,
I
right?
think a lot of
Not robust at all
mhm.
whatsoever, unless you really think it
Exactly.
through. You are used to leaning on tools and frameworks actually giving you enough detail for the developers to work with, but this is a completely new chain with not a lot of
That's it.
error
Getting caught
handling.
up. People get caught up on one-off errors based on old systems. They're like, I found a bug. I have, this thing happened once. You're like, sorry, if something happened once, like all of your guidelines have to be in case of like these errors can't happen more than 10% of the time or something, right? And so especially like QA might be really used to being like, I found an error. And it's like, okay, no, but we can't be freaking out over onesie twosie things anymore. We have to look at statistics to determine is this trending poorly? Is this changing over time? As opposed to is something wrong one time, right? So that's definitely a big one, Ying. The other one I found that I remember people don't often think about how much data learning systems need to actually adapt and improve. So there's a lot of like assumptions that like, hey, we'll launch this and then we'll use the feedback to either personalize it like right away. That's the big, wow factor, or it'll learn over time and adapt. And then I remember we had several features on Alexa that was sort of the plan. And I remember sort of halfway through the project when we were planning launch, we realized, oh, the number of times users use this and like how often we can repeat certain features to people would be like, oh, this person's going to actually like answer two questions in like a year of this type.
So you won't
And
customize
like,
or learn from two
so it's going to
different.
take about 200 years for us to know if it's working or not, right? And like, you have to sit down and do that math beforehand because, especially if you don't have a high volume of users, like, you can underestimate how much data it actually takes. Of course, you can personalize off of like, hey, we know that a segment or their age and stuff, but if you're personalizing off of or trying to like learn off of behavioral data, just know how much it would take to actually make a difference to your system, or you could end up building a learning system that doesn't actually change that much for a really long time. Definitely something to keep an eye on.
Okay, so you don't need an AI PhD, but you need better math.
Yeah, exactly. You need more paranoia.
And that, I want
It's
to
good
see
news for
that on
all
a
us
job
anxious girlies out
description.
there. Fantastic. Well, that was the pitfalls of deploying and maintaining AI projects once they go live. And that concludes our question segment.
Woo! Okay, and now on to, I know as I say this every time, my single most favorite segment of
Mine
any
too.
podcast, anywhere, anytime. And of course, it's the much anticipated BS in AI segment of AI
Bullshit.
After
It's
Hours.
like the card game bullshit, but for
It's the
AI.
kind of bullshit. Yeah, where we parse through either anecdotes, headlines, or the trends that we're seeing and call bullshit. So, of course, in my classic fashion, I only have two words for this one, Polly. What do you think
Uh-huh.
about anything related to Elon Musk?
I I just don't care. Like I just don't care. He's a rich man and like let him go do whatever he wants. Like I don't care. Like I don't know.
Yeah, the Elon
It's
Musk
the worst.
drama. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, the most recent one, he has dropped his lawsuit against OpenAI because he started it. It's not nonprofit. That whole shenanigans. He's dropped that lawsuit, but now the Tesla shareholders are suing Elon Musk for starting a competitive business X because he's diverting resources and GPUs from Tesla over into XAI. So of course the Tesla
Yeah.
shareholders like, hey, what the hell? You
Yeah.
can't do this. And
No
thirdly,
kidding.
just I'm tacking it on because XAI is Elon Musk, and in case you missed it, on XAI it is now okay to post AI generated X-rated content as long as you label it.
Uh,
I don't know why
it's
that
just the
makes the
worst.
news, but I'm like, that's we're grouping that
You
together.
can't
So
even deal
yes,
sometimes.
Elon Musk AI drama.
Let's move on. We've
Yeah.
talked too much about him already.
Okay. And just to hear Elon Musk, bullshit. Just we're just moving on.
Exactly. It's
Okay.
like spell that out of here.
All right. So let's get a little more. So when we are looking at either startup companies or deciding on products that we want to build and try to launch ourselves, you kind of get the sense, number one, from VCs. If you ever try to raise money around an AI company with a VC, they're like, well, do you have proprietary data? Are you building a foundational model? If you don't, it's not going to happen. You're getting the sense that unless you're building a foundational model at a large scale with data that no one else has, it's not a product or an AI company that's worth building at all. Which I'm just that. Okay, I mean, I have to say sometimes I understand why that one is what it is because it's the
Totally.
amount of money they're throwing in on the VC level.
Yeah.
But what is
Yeah.
your take? Good?
Yeah.
No
It
good.
feels like at the very beginning, even VCs didn't get that idea that, like, hey, if you can just build a prompt that's really copyable, if you can recreate it with just prompting, very copyable, not a defensive mode. So they were throwing a bunch of money at companies. And a lot of them, like, got swallowed up just by feature expansions from OpenAI, right? If you were like, hey, build a chatbot, they're like, oh, here's custom GPTs. Too bad, chatbot builders, right? Not exactly true, but there's still a lot of differentiating features. But the idea is clear that like they have no qualms about going after certain spaces, especially if they're big, broad spaces, and like infrastructure tools for this stuff. But yeah, and then there was like the pullback where they're like, oh, nobody invests in something that's just a wrapper over OpenAI, right? Which again, I don't think it does need to be more defensible than that to be VC investable. Can you still make money? Of course, right? Like you can still make really excellent product, and then you're building defensible things like distribution and brand and being well known, right? I look at Claire Vaux's chat PRD. So she's a product leader. She's on Twitter just taking like, hey, give me your product idea and I'll give you a PRD. She's just popping it into her custom GPT. And she was on Ref AI from Reforge. They had a conference last week. She's like, "Oh, it is but a prompt, but she is mine." That quote. But she's like, gone, tried this over a lot of different use cases, taken feedback, improved it. Okay, if someone gets a hold of that prompt, they can just copy it. So there's definitely like security holes with like trying to keep that a little bit safe. No, I would not expect this to become a $1 billion company, a unicorn. I would not be investing like the VC money to get those kind of returns. But if you're just building a little business, like there's so much room to niche down and bring AI to people in their current workflows, right? The value of saving them 8 hours on something, and you can show them how. Like a lot of that is happening at bigger companies with internal use cases. Smaller companies don't have the time to do that. So I think there's such opportunity for smaller businesses who want to spin up and do this. And a lot of the times they get poo-pooed as like, oh, it's just a wrapper, it's not worth doing. It's like,
Yeah.
could still do quite well on it for quite a number of years. I don't think that the big guys are going after these tiny little, like very specific use cases and particular verticals.
Speaking
So
of the
it's,
big guys, though, speaking of the big guys, that's the other one I hear a lot. Why are you building that? Why would you build that? Microsoft is going to turn it on. Google's going to turn it on.
yeah,
Apple's going to turn it on. You're going to be
yeah,
wiped out, right? So sometimes it feels like in the AI space, there is no room for smaller ideas, smaller products. That's not a foundational model. Or that's not somehow covered by the big three, which I feel like, okay, that just covered every compute use case
yeah,
there is, right?
yeah,
What do you say
exactly.
to that?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
at
it's
Amazon.
well, but I've also worked with really small startups too. So I've heard this, like, definitely in my courses, people come and they're like, "Hey, we're kind of just starting out. We don't have a data science team. Like, I don't know what's involved in fine tuning a model. I think it involves code. We can't do anything, right?" And I'm like, "No, like, this is your era, man. Like, seize the day, seize the microphone, because this is the first time you can do it without a data science team, and like just try, right?" And so, yeah, I think there is some sorting out. There's definitely those things on the edge that we have seen startups clobbered, right? When bigger features come out, right? And so, like, definitely early on, was I about to like invest in a word processor that happens to have AI embedded in it? Like, no, there's already a word processor that's got dominant market share, and they are the forerunners in in integrating AI, or they're going to be because they've got like access to this amazing model, right? So like you have to kind of look at where they are today and what they're going to expand into, at least a little more future forward than that. But yeah, I think for companies that are trying to adopt this, it's totally misconception. I guess I was gonna say it's totally a misconception. The hard part is there's definitely the occasional use case where they're like, we're gonna go build it ourselves. And I'm like, oh, I bet that is only like 3 months away.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you say about that, Yuying? Because like, where's that line? How do you tell the difference?
Yeah. So I think a lot of things are quote unquote 3 months away, but probably not your
Right.
use
Just
case.
like
So I think being
certain
able to raise
persons.
VC money is a whole separate thing than creating a
Yeah,
valuable product for your
exactly.
user segment. So don't
When they
confuse
say
the
three
two.
months away, it's probably 3 months away. The way Elon Musk's self-driving car was always months away.
And that's nice callback. Nice callback, Polly.
Let's go to callback. Um, Even though I had to say his vile name again. Whatever.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
um, yeah, it's it's I think that's a difficulty right now, and where people should be considering carefully and taking on their use cases of like, hey, is this something that's just going to be added to Word in 6 months
Uh,
or
yeah.
Excel or
I
right
think the thing
or
is for do the work. Believe in what you believe in. Don't just hear this, oh,
yeah,
they'll turn it on, don't do it. Oh, unless you're doing a foundational model, you're not worthy. There is
that's
lots of space for innovation. Do your work, have faith, and be smart.
exactly. Just try it out. Exactly. And if it's cheap and easy to build, then go ahead, right? It's only really if you're like, "Oh, I'm going to develop my own like video understanding model," then I'm like, okay, guys, that's pretty big and the big guys will probably beat you to it. Maybe that's a good bar. Just understanding and assess the cost to build it. But there's so much stuff right now we're still in that era of low-hanging fruit. So exciting.
Yeah, and exactly. And even though we tend to think of like Microsoft and Google to have limitless talent and limitless money, I worked in Microsoft, you worked in Amazon. We understand that internally the amount of process you have to go through to get approval to do anything. We cannot focus on everything you think. They don't
Right.
throw money at people at everything. They're going to pick their
Yeah.
thing, and mostly you don't get to pick what you think is cool. Somebody else much, much, much higher pick that. So
There's a filter of will this 10x the business, right? And if it's smaller than that, it gets left on the floor. So essentially, and that's what Sam Altman has even said this. He's like, if his advice to third parties is like niche down, niche down. It's a little sad. They're like, we're gonna, the big guys are gonna take all the big $1 billion of value and be the base layer, and you guys can have the crumbs. It's not the most positive message, but the fact is the crumbs are not negligible,
they're
and
not
like people
small.
shouldn't be discouraged from going after that. Right? That's still
Exactly.
it's a lot better than yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. That wraps up our bullshit for the month. Over to you,
Yeah, there
Polly.
we go. We only have time for one last segment, and that is plugs. So tell me, Yuying, what do you have to plug this month?
All right. My plug is the same as always, my newsletter, which you can access through yuying.substack.com or follow me on LinkedIn, and it will be there as well, where I break down in even more detail some of this bullshit headlines and announcements, like the Google Development Conference, the Apple one, the Microsoft one, so you get more detailed breakdowns in there.
Awesome. Yeah, Yuying is always my source of truth on these things. I also would like to plug my newsletter. So if you go to aicareerboost.com/interested, we are taking a break from teaching courses over the summer, but we'll be back in August. So July is a nice time to have chill and read the newsletter. We're having a hot AI summer. We're breaking down all of the six core competencies of AI PMs and what those look like when they're done well, how to succeed in the field, etc. So that's all part of my newsletter. Also, my newsletter's on LinkedIn, so follow me there. And you'll be the first to know when we're reopening the doors to both our Reforge course, it's happening in August, and the AI Complete Product Leader Blueprint that the cohort kicks off in September.
Okay, so AI
Excellent. And
does take a break
lastly,
in summer.
maybe it does. Maybe it does. Or if it goes on autopilot. Hopefully, it's its first autopilot test. So as always, we want to shamelessly plug the show. Do not forget to like and subscribe, or go to your favorite podcast, distribution, and give us 5 stars. Please, please, please. It helps us get the word out. And if you want to reach out with questions you'd like us to answer, support at AI Career Boost, and we would love to hear them. That's another episode of AI After Hours. Thanks so much again, Yu Ying. We'll see you next month. And thanks, everyone. See you next time.
Happy summer.